Thank you for joining me. My name is Mark Fittipelli. I'm a New York City-based attorney. I represent traditional and cryptocurrency investors in financial fraud cases nationwide. I'm here today to give you my best practices for owning cryptocurrency, both on centralized and on decentralized exchanges. First, I'm going to talk about owning crypto on a centralized exchange. Examples of centralized exchanges are things like Coinbase, Gemini, Kraken. Those are examples of centralized exchanges. So my tips for owning crypto on a centralized exchange. First, and this goes without saying, I think this is fairly obvious, you should pick a complicated password. If your password or if your email is ever compromised, you should change that password immediately. Second is you should not use SMS text as your method of dual factor authentication. Let me explain what I mean by that. So dual factor authentication, it's basically a second password that you use to access your account. And most users, and the statistics that I've read is more than 90% of Coinbase users use their cell phone for dual factor authentication. And what that entails is you'll get a text, after you enter in your password, you'll get a text message to your cell phone with a code, and you enter in that code as your second password, and that gives you access to your account and access to your wallet. The reason why I don't recommend using your cell phone for two-factor authentication is because cell phone companies aren't very good at protecting their users' data. And unfortunately, there's a malicious scam known as SIM swapping. And what SIM swapping involves is it involves sophisticated hackers identifying you as a cryptocurrency investor and taking over your cell phone. And what they'll do is they'll convince your cell phone company to provide your SIM information to them, and they'll take over and your cell phone will stop working, and they'll receive text messages, right? They'll receive your SMS code, and they'll also gain access to your cell phone, and they may gain access to other accounts. They may gain access to your email password. Once they gain access to your cell phone, you may have photographs, which is another bad idea, having photographs of passwords on your cell phone. So, for those reasons, I don't recommend that users use their cell phone for two-factor authentication. Instead, you should use a device known as a token for two-factor authentication. It's a far more secure way of owning crypto than using your cell phone. The other tip that I'd like to give you for owning cryptocurrency in a centralized exchange is to bookmark the exchange. Right? Bookmark it instead of typing it in every time, or definitely you shouldn't click a link to the exchange that's emailed to you from someone that you don't recognize. And the reason why you want to bookmark it instead of typing it in every time is in case you make a mistake, malicious hackers have created, and this happens more often than you think, literally fake exchanges that look identical to actual centralized exchanges. And if you make a typo and if you go to the wrong exchange, they'll create systems where they'll steal your password that way. And so for that reason, we recommend that you bookmark the exchange rather than typing it in every time. The last thing that I would recommend if you have your crypto at a centralized exchange is you should consider taking advantage of the enhanced security features of some of the exchanges. Some of them offer delays in withdrawals. So if you're not if you don't trade cryptocurrency frequently, you could enable a setting where withdrawals are delayed several days. And that's something that I recommend personally, because if cryptocurrency is stolen from you, it's stolen in an instant and it's irreversible. Yes, it could be traced, but the overwhelming number of people who have cryptocurrency stolen from them are never able to recover it from the person who steals it. So if you have a delay in the withdrawal, at least you have a chance of stopping it if you're alerted to the fact that you're a victim of a SIM swap or some other hacking event. So those are my tips for owning cryptocurrency at a centralized exchange. If you don't own cryptocurrency at a centralized exchange and you just own it through a decentralized wallet, what I recommend that you do is that, number one, you purchase a cold storage device. And a cold storage device is a device that's not connected to the internet. And examples of cold storage devices are things called Ledger. Trezor is another example. And the benefit of using those devices are, number one, they're not connected to the internet. And number two, there are multiple levels of security. Some of the devices have security for the device itself, where you have to enter in a password for the device itself, and then another password to actually access your wallet. So, if you're not using a centralized exchange, I'd recommend that you use one of those cold storage devices. Another thing that I would recommend that you do is when you're dealing with your seed phrases, and I'll explain what seed phrases are. Seed phrases aren't your password. They're a series of words, random words that, think of it like your master password that you use to gain access to your wallet. And the seed phrases are incredibly important because if you lose your password, you could use your seed phrases to gain access to your wallet. What people do sometimes, and we receive calls to our office, and the calls are heartbreaking, is they'll take pictures of their seed phrase, or they'll have their seed phrase on their iCloud or on their computer, or digitized some way. And it's heartbreaking because you've taken so many measures to protect yourself. You may have a cold storage device, and you're not connected to the internet, and you're making a huge mistake by digitizing your seed phrase, because someone could just hack your phone or hack your iCloud and they could access your seed phrase. So the worst thing you could do is take a picture of a seed phrase or a password and keep it on your cell phone. The better thing you should do, and what I recommend investors should do, is you should keep a physical copy of your seed phrase at a safe place in your house. Keep it in a safe if you have one. And also keep a second copy either with someone you trust or in a safety deposit box at your bank. And that's what I recommend. And keep in mind that these recommendations should be commensurate with the amount of cryptocurrency that you own. If you own a couple $100 worth of crypto, it doesn't make sense for you to spend a couple $100 to buy a cold storage device, right? The steps that you should take to protect yourself should be relative to the amount of money that you have or the amount of cryptocurrency that you've invested in. And the more crypto you've invested in, the more onerous the steps you should take to protect yourself. So those are my tips. Certainly not an exhaustive list, but those are my tips and best practices to protect yourself from fraud.